There have been a lot of rumors going around over the last week or so with guys who could be available on the trade block. One of them most recently, Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars, with them having only about $5 million in cap and a lot of guys they need to resign. Is there a possibility that the Hurricanes could be in play for Robertson?
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers, also the co-host of the Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a good Thursday show for you guys as we kind of look at the latest rumors surrounding Jason Robertson, why he might be on his way out potentially with the Dallas Stars. Can the Hurricanes make a trade for him, and does it make sense, and who would it possibly have to be? And then if they do acquire Robertson, where would he fit in the lineup? But before we jump into all of that action surrounding him, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONAHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. Now, when looking at the Dallas Stars, what situation are they looking at? Well, going into the offseason of 2025, they have no first round picks, no second rounds, no fourths. They have a third, 2 fifths, a sixth, and a seventh, and they only have $4.955 million in cap. Now, that already does sound crazy for the fact that they have 16 guys currently on their active roster, and not even like you're just a tad under $5 million left in cap. Now, what does that mean? Well, you have Mikko Rantanen for 12, Tyler Seguin at 9.85, Roope Hintz at 8.45, Wyatt Johnson at 8.4, and then you have Robertson, who's at 7.75 going into next season before he becomes an RFA in the summer of 26. And then you had Mason Marchment for 4.5, and that's not including Miro Heiskanen at 8.45, Esa Lindell at 5.25, Thomas Harley at 4, Matt Dumba at 3.75, and Ilya Bushkin at 3.25. Yeah, their entire defense is set and making $25.6 million, which is 26% of the cap, while their 8 forwards who are signed take up 56.4 at 53.8. The thing is, Jamie Benn's a free agent, Matt Duchene, Evgeny Dadonov, Mikhail Granlund, Colin Blackwell, and Maverick Bourque, but Bourque is an RFA. That being said, there have been rumors of the Stars maybe having to pivot and trade someone away to open up some cap space. And the one name they've talked about is Jason Robertson, which, if it's going to be Robertson, that is a very interesting move for the fact that he is their top line left winger, can also play right wing. He's only 25 years old. He's 6'3", just had a season where he had 80 points in 82 games, 35 goals, 45 assists. Average just a tad under 14 minutes of even strength. And the fact that they're looking at getting rid of a guy who just had back-to-back 80-point seasons exactly, had a bigger goal total this year than he did last year. But the thing is, he's like 2 seasons removed from a 109-point season back in 22-23, where he had 46 goals, which is a career high, and a career high 63 assists. Now, is that a little bit of a down season? If you look at 109 points in 1 year, then back-to-back 80s, yeah, that's a 29-point difference. But you're still talking about a guy that, even if you look back at the 21-22 season, 79 points in 74 games. So he's been over a point per game or very close to it in the last 4 seasons. Of course, 2 of them being 80 and 82, but that's still really good, all things considered. That's where it's the crazy part of you have all the guys to get rid of. Robertson might be the one. Yeah, he got a year left on his contract, and he's an RFA at 26, which is still crazy to think. But the guy who's going to be 26 is a potential RFA, so you're getting his rights on top of that. The thing is, his current contract, $7.75 million going into 25-26. So you already know what cap you're going to be going with on him for this upcoming season. And then at that point, you got his rights. And they have a whole year to negotiate with him, figure stuff out. Then you go into next summer. Do you get a deal done this summer, or do you play the season out and figure it out as you go? But you have that whole year to give him that whatever that extension that is, and then he's a UFA at 26 next year. Then he's 25 right now. That gives a lot of leeway to some teams to possibly make a move for him if he is on the trade block, as the rumors say he is. And if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, you've already had a trade with Dallas. You traded them Mikko Rantanen to go get Logan Stankoven and 4 draft picks, 2/3 and 2 firsts. Now it comes into the question of, do you make that move again? Do you make a trade with Dallas to go get Robertson? And as good as Robertson is, if he is available and if the Hurricanes give enough assets to get him, which I've already talked about this week when we talked about Marner, and I've already talked about Marco Rossi, is the fact that the Hurricanes have $28.4 million in cap, and they got 21 draft picks over the next 3 drafts. And if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, on top of that, the thing that's really going to put you in a good spot is that one of the picks in 2026 in round 1 is Dallas's. And you also own their 3rd that year, and you own a 7th. That's some really good business deals to have. And the thing on top of that, you could potentially, if you wanted to, send them a first back in 26, because you have 6 draft picks coming up at 25. If they want picks before 2026, if they want something sooner than their 26s that you gave up, that could be in play. You could give up your 2025 first and then maybe a 3rd, or however you want to do it, or you still give them that 26 first back that they sent you in that trade for Rantanen, and maybe you don't trade. You don't pick at 29. Maybe you have a pick for the first 2 rounds. So it'd be no first rounder and no pick in round 1. No pick and go there if they wanted to. 2 firsts could be on the table, and then whoever else you want, whatever players you add. Of course, we'll talk more about that in segment 2. But laying out the groundwork, laying the foundation of what the situation calls for the Canes, they've already done trades with Dallas before, and they own their picks. Who's to say you can't send them back for another asset? Go and get Logan Stankoven on the trade deadline, and then not even 3 months later, 4 months later, go and snag Robertson, and basically just kind of flip-flop their picks back and forth to get them. That'd be some good business work for the Hurricanes if they make that work, because now you're adding a top-line bona fide left winger / right winger. You could put him on that line with Aho and Jarvis. Of course, we'll talk more about line fill, where he would fill in the lineups later on in the show. But there's a lot to be said of something that could really be working here. And the fact that Robertson might be the guy on the move for Dallas, it would make no sense for the Hurricanes not to at least try and make a move for him. They got the draft capital. Obviously, they got the cap space. They're going to have $28.4 million. And if they think Marner's too much money, Robertson would be a great addition as well if they go for that. So what would a trade look like for Jason Robertson? Well, stick around and I'll talk about it more here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can check all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKDOWNAHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKDOWNAHL for half off your first year. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, kind of like the foundation of it in segment 1, what could a possible trade look like for Jason Robertson if the Hurricanes go and make a run for him? Well, you could technically give your first and third in this upcoming draft if you wanted to, or if the ask is possibly 2 first, well, you do own their 2026 first round pick. Wouldn't be a bad option to send it back to them. I mean, you got the pick. Do you really need 2 first rounders next in the 26th draft when most likely both these teams are going to be in the playoffs? Both of those picks are going to be late first rounders. Why not send it back to Dallas and give them the opportunity to use it for an offer sheet later down the road? And then you possibly have a shot for Jason Robertson. And you're already picking 29th in this draft already coming up at the end of June. Hurricanes have traded back before, and they have 6 picks in the 25 draft. Of course, if they trade their first rounder in this upcoming one, they're not going to have a pick, and they're going to have a pick until round 3. But if you go get a guy like Jason Robertson, do you really need 2 picks in the first couple rounds when you can still go do what you need to do with the 5 other picks between 3, 4, 6, and 7 and all that? You're talking about an instant upgrade to Robertson. You already know what his contract situation's like. He's making $7.75 million next season, and he's an RFA. So you could extend him if you wanted to, or go through the season, figure something out, and then give him an extension whenever. Plus, you own his rights. So going into next summer, if you still haven't figured a deal out, you still control him. You still control his contract because he would be a restricted free agent at 26, which is still crazy to think about. So let's say it's a 2025 first and a 2026 first. What do you add on top of that? Well, as good as Jason Robertson's been, like I said, 109 points a couple seasons ago. Last season he had 80. This past season he had 80. So you're looking at a good number of points out of Jason Robertson already in his career at 25. Top line left winger. Definitely been on the first power play in it. What else do you add to that to make the Stars be like, okay, we'll gladly take them? Because here's the situation. If you want to get great players, you also have to give up good and great players as well on your end. Now, for Dallas, they're looking at a situation where they can't take on another big contract. They're already having to move Robertson 7.75. So what does that mean for them going forward? How are they going to lessen their cap space and trade him away, but still be able to get draft picks and guys that are going to be returning to the roster, but not going to take up between $4 to $6 million? Because it's just counterintuitive, because then what was the point of making the trade if it's going to be somewhat near? So you're going to have to look at contracts that are going to be around $1 million, maybe $3 million. At least you get some wiggle room here. That's where you look at contracts for the Hurricanes, of where you look at their prospect pool, and there are some guys that they could trade off that are either already in the league now, or who are about ready to get into the league that make ELCs. Now, will that be a good move for the Stars? Their future will look a lot better, but at least it'll give them some wiggle room on their contract situations with their cap space. Because like I said, they only have $4.9 million, and they have 16 contracts under their belts next year for a 23-man roster. And they have a lot of forwards they're going to have to take care of. If they want to keep some of those guys and then move out Robertson, it'll open up some money, but they're going to have to take a lot lesser contracts. And if you're looking at guys on the Hurricanes roster right now that make decent enough money to where it's not going to almost offset, well, it's not going to be just Barry Kotkaniemi because that deal makes no sense. There's no way they would trade for him. So you would have to look at the guys who are, like I said, already on the roster or some highly touted prospects. Now, does that include a Scott Morrow? Maybe. Does that include a Jackson Blake? Possibly. I mean, you're looking at a guy who had 17 goals and 34 points in his rookie season. You know, does that sway Dallas into taking him on his ELC? Because then they're talking about 2 more years of, him, or however, whatever that deal works out to. Do you look at Felix Unger-Sorum? Who really knows? I mean, he had an okay season in Chicago, but is that enough to move the needle? Do the Hurricanes move Bradley Nadeau, who's probably one of their purest goal scorers right now in the system? Do you make that move? I would say it would have to be one of Blake or Nadeau. Can't be both. That would be tough for both of them and 2 firsts. It would have to be one of those guys and a highly like a good defensive prospect, like a Dominic Bandica or something like that. Or, is it Morrow? Do you throw a Morrow Blake in that conversation? But if you're looking at, guys on lesser contracts for the Hurricanes to move outside of your, younger core guys, that's going to be tough. Because you get Blake for 1 more season at $905,000. You still got 3 full years of Nadeau at $886,000. Other than that, there's no guy young enough that's not going to be making too much money where a swap for Robertson doesn't make sense. Like just Barry Kotkaniemi, 4.82. Everyone else after that, 33-year-old Taylor Hall, 32-year-old Jordan Martinook, 36-year-old Jordan Stahl, 30-year-old William Carey. And nothing against those guys, but tough to match a Robertson. Defense, you have Scott Morrow going into his last year at $916,000. That's what I said. This is where you're looking at possibly if you're probably going to have to move guys higher up in your prospect system. Is it a Unger-Sorum? Is it a Justin Robidas or a Gleb Trikasov? That's where I'd see more of those moves happening. Is it a Dominic Bandica or a Charles Alexis Legault? Honestly, if it's 2 first-rounders, I could see it maybe being 2 first, maybe Morrow if they go defense. And if it's offense, it would have to be Blake or Nadeau. And that's the tough part to be in. I can't say which would be the best move. But that's kind of where you're looking at if you go for Robertson and you want to give Dallas the extra flexibility of their cap. Because they're going to have to take 7.75 off. You can't give them back anything north of $3 million because that's only opening up $4.7 million. Yeah, it's a little bit, but you're still talking only a tad over $9 million for the Stars to still figure out their roster. It's going to have to be one where you're looking at $1 or $2 million and you're opening up a lot of cap space for Dallas. So that's where a ELC RFA situation comes in. And the Hurricanes have a lot of good young guys. And like I said earlier, if you want to trade for good players, you're going to have to trade for good back. And by good, you're possibly talking some high-end A-rated prospects. Like I said, Blake, Nadeau, Morrow, maybe Bendica, maybe Legault. There's going to be some combination of those guys in 2 first-rounders because there's no way Dallas is going to take anything less than firsts. One might work, but probably might be two. I don't know if they're going to go first and a third. But there's a lot of avenues the Hurricanes to go down on. They have the cap space. Obviously, they have the draft picks. They got 20 of them to do it. It's just what player are they willing to give up to get a Jason Robertson? Let's say they do. Let's say they go get Robertson. It could be the two first. It could be a first and a third, however that works out, and a combination of prospects or maybe a prospect and another roster guy they can get rid of. Who knows? But let's say it works out. They make the deal. Robertson's coming to Carolina. Where does he fit in the lineup? Well, stick around. We'll talk about that more here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we talked about segment 1, what's the rumors on Robertson? Segment 2, we talked about what could a possible trade look like for Jason Robertson, where you might have to give up some really high-end draft picks and some really good prospects, most likely, to go get them. Let's say you do it. Let's say the Hurricanes get the move done. Whoever gets shipped out, whoever picks get shipped out, now Robertson's on the Hurricanes. You got him for 1 year, $775 million. He's an RFA next summer. You got all the space to make a move. What does that look like for him on the roster? Obviously, first line, that's a no-brainer. Now, could you put him on your left or right side? Yeah, you could easily do that. He could play on either side of the ice. Wouldn't be a bad option. He is a left shot, 6'3", 201. He's 25 right now. I would say most likely the Hurricanes are, let's say they're going to put him on the left side. First line left wing, boom, done. There you go. Obviously, Aho is your first line center. Now let's say they don't go get Marner. Let's say Robertson is their guy they went after. Marner's not with the Hurricanes. He's still in Toronto, wherever he goes. Let's say, like I said, they get the trade done. Robertson's first line left wing, he is their guy. He is their big fish splash of the season, of the offseason. You got Aho center. Now, Seth Jarvis. Do you have Seth Jarvis on your right wing? Obviously. That would make sense. So you possibly look at a first line of Robertson, Aho, Jarvis as your first. You look at your second line. Now you're looking at a Hall, and as of currently right now, just Barry Kokaniemi and Andrei Svechnikov. Not a bad second line. Obviously, you're still going to have some stuff to work out on. You know, do you go get a second line center from somewhere else? Is it in another trade? Is it free agency that you go get your second line center? What does that look like? And so that's your top 6. Robertson first line with Aho, Jarvis, then Hall, Kotkaniemi, and Svechnikov. Third line, obviously Martinook, Stahl, Stankoven, and then you got Carrier, Jankowski, and if Blake is not part of that trade, Jackson Blake as your fourth line right wing. If he is, then I guess we'll figure out who's coming up. Could be Nadeau if he's not part of the trade. If you know what's that combination look like if you're fourth right wing? No, it depends on who's the trade, who's a part of the trade. So let's say that's a question mark right now. Who's your fourth line right wing? If you get Robertson, depending on the trade. Then defense, obviously Slavin Burns as of right now, Nikishin and whoever they're going to put there on that line with them, and then Gostisbehere and Walker. We'll see. Then looking on the power play, obviously Robertson first line, first power play unit left wing. Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov is going to be there, and Gostisbehere. Honestly, a very nasty, great first power play unit. Then your second would be a combination of Hall, Kotkaniemi, Stankoven, maybe Chatfield, maybe Walker, and then whoever else you have down there on the second power play unit, depending on who's part of the trade. If Blake is still with the team, then it's Jackson Blake. If he's not, who do you put there? So that's the main question. But if you're looking at Jason Robertson, you go and trade for him. Wherever the package is the package. Whoever draft picks and guys leaving out. But obviously, if you're looking at Robertson, who's really good at 25, just had back-to-back 8-point seasons, had 109 2 years ago, I think a very, very good scorer an elite scorer, and someone who was a teammate of Logan Stankoven, and who plays a similar play style to Carolina for the most part. You got one more year of control of him, at least, because, like I say, he's an RFA, so you could extend him this summer, or you can extend him at any point in the regular season. But you can get that done. Or if you want to wait until next summer and get it done, you still have his rights. So there you go. You have him locked. You at least have him for a season under an actual contract, and then you have his rights for a summer. So you're putting yourself in a good spot there. Obviously, he's going to be your first line left wing. Makes sense. The way he scores, he'll fit in great with whoever's on that line with him. Rather be, it's going to be Aho, then it's whoever else you put over there. Svechnikov, Jarvis, any guy you want to throw over there, really. That would be a great first line. Your top six will look really, really good as well. Like I said, with those guys and Hall and Svechnikov at least. Obviously, you're still going to address your second line center. That's a given. And then your first power play, it's going to have Robertson on it with Aho, Jarvis, Svechnikov, and Gostisbehere. That would be the way to go in terms of that, of your first power play in it. Then obviously Robertson would probably be shootouts, 3-on-3 in the overtime, top group of 4-on-4 play, stuff like that. The basic things for a guy who's a first line person. And then after that, you kind of figure out what his contract is. You're going to have that 8th year option because you're going to own his rights. He'll be 26. You give him 8 years. That puts him in 33, 34. Not bad at all to fit within that window of Jarvis, Aho, Svechnikov, Slavin, all those guys that are locked up for a good long time. Now you add Robertson to the mix. Not bad. Not bad, all things considered. The fact that, like you said, you sign him when he's 26, give him a nice 7-8 year deal. Moves him up to 36 years old. Pretty good. You'll take that. Or 34. Either way, you're looking pretty good in terms of adding him. It's just, is he actually available from the Stars? That's the big question. Are the rumors true? Are they looking to trade him? And then if that, do the Hurricanes want to make that move, and who are they comfortable getting rid of? Because like I said, if you want to get good, you're going to have to trade good. And that means you're looking at possibly getting rid of some really high-end prospects that you really liked, but you got a guy who's established in Robertson, and the Stars are going to want some really high-end talent back, at least on the prospect side, if you can't give them someone who's ready right now, because they have to figure out their cap situation. It's a tough spot to be in for Dallas when you're at $4.9 million and a bunch of guys you need to go re-sign. So, is it a Morrow? Is it a Blake? Nadeau? Unger Sorum? Bendica? Who knows? It'll be very interesting to see what the Hurricanes pull off and what they're going to do with that. But if they're, and like I said, the Hurricanes have made moves with Dallas before, so they're good trade partners. So does that mean does Carolina go use their draft picks that they got from them as part of the arsenal for the trade? Maybe. It'll definitely be something to keep an eye on. If the Hurricanes can pull it off, then hey, there you go. Sebastian Aho kind of said that they really need to go get talent, and getting Robertson would be a big addition to the talent side for sure, especially on the first line and especially on the power play. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out, but who knows? Maybe the Carolina Hurricanes are in for Jason Robertson. But guys, this will be a Thursday. Locked On Hurricanes, making your first here. Go check out Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is L_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where you can check out all of my links in my link tree, especially to all my written content over at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, we're on Google, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review. That way I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share it with all other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Thursday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.